Hello?
What's up?
Okay, so yesterday I was gonna ask you this question, but I didn't get time right. I got booted off. But okay, so here's my question, right? So you can't divorce tag from its scripted revelatory context, right?
Right.
But how do you get to the place where you can actually prove that all of Revelation is true, right? Because like we have some heretics, right, who will try to say that there are some errors, right, within Revelation. So how does the transcendental argument fit into that?
Well, the fact that there's some people who claim that there's parts of Revelation that are not true, what does that have to do with the transcendental argument?
Well, how do you prove that all of Revelation is true with the transcendental?
Well, the whole argument is for an entire paradigm and the entire worldview, so it includes all of that. So it's a holistic argument. The whole thing stands or falls.
Yeah, well, a heretic could have that same total paradigm, right?
No, that wouldn't be consistent at all. It would be a different system and a different position if it's not my entire holistic position. It would be inconsistent because it's a position that. So part of the system is that it's holistic and it necessitates the whole system. So, for example, you couldn't say, "Oh, well, I have everything that you have, but my worldview is the Jesus who's not incarnate." Okay, that would be another position because it's a mutually exclusive position. To be consistent. Does that make sense or not?
Not really, but...
So part of the argument is that the system as a whole is necessary. So it would be inconsistent and not my position if you took away elements of it.
Okay, yeah.
Does that make sense? So, for example, Islam, they believe some of the things that we believe. But it's not our position simply because they have some of the things that we believe. Because our position necessitates the entire position.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but the only things that make your position strong, right, and a strong foundation to believe in is the Trinity, the Monarchia, and the energy essence distinctions, right?
No, it's the whole position. It's not just three things. It's the deity of Christ, the incarnation, the inspiration of Scripture. It would be the whole thing. Orthodox Church, it's an entire worldview. It's not piecemeal. The argument is for the entire worldview.
Okay.
So if I came along and said, like Muslims do, well, I have 50% of what you have, that would not be my position. My position excludes having 90% of my position.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
If you read the Theistic Fallacies paper, he actually deals with this at the beginning because there's an argument made by the Thomist so-called Orthodox guy, the old guy, I forget his name. And he argues that there's a lowest common denominator theism. And Garraby critiques that by saying, actually, the Trinitarian position is mutually exclusive to other positions. And if you start removing attributes, you no longer have that position. Therefore, there is no lowest common denominator Trinity position. That makes sense. Jerome? Trying again, dude. Jerome, what's up, man? Unmute. You have to unmute now. You're raising your hand, you have to unmute. Why are you raising your hand if you're muted, dude? Come on. Che Guevara, what's up? Unmute. Dacia.
Hey, AJ, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, yeah, it's kind of interesting that last guy, he said exactly what I was thinking to bring up. what if someone were to come with a transcendental argument, but for another paradigm, and that was kind of going to be my question, because I could see someone saying, well, everything that I have in my paradigm is necessary for my worldview, and if you don't accept my paradigm, then you're not going to accept the system, and everything that I have in my system is necessary. So I see the validity of the argument, and that's why I think it's you're the first person I've heard make that transcendental argument, but at the same time, I could see someone using that same argument for a different paradigm and saying, well, internally it's consistent.
But that's not, the argument is not just it's internally consistent. That would be a coherentist model. And the argument that we're making is not a coherentist argument for Christianity merely being internally consistent. The argument is that Christian theism in the Orthodox perspective and worldview provides a basis for ethics, metaphysics, and epistemology. That's a very specific argument. It's not merely that my system is internally incoherent in some abstract conceptual way. It's not abstract and conceptual. It includes the entire account of history. That's why it's a worldview argument.
Right, so that's the paradigm argument, right?
Right, correct.
So what I'm saying is then I could see other people making that same
they can claim that they have a worldview that does that, but they have to actually demonstrate that and prove it, and they can't do that. That's why we compare the paradigms.
So it's only inconsistent from another paradigm, from what I can tell. That's kind of, I'm just being honest from what I've observed and heard and stuff, but that's kind of where I'm at.
No. We're arguing not that everybody is stuck in a paradigm, but that literally only one paradigm can actually be holistically and internally consistent.
Okay, so that's new because I haven't heard that part. I see. So then that kind of gets into the revelatory aspect of each, or you'd say that it has to be divinely revealed on some level, right?
Yes.
And it has to be historic too. I think what Jay was saying too, and we've seen people object to this, trying to do this kind of ad hoc copy and paste from your paradigm and go, well, I'll just make this, assuming that it's just some type of, like Jay said, philosophically constructed coherentism or something like that. But part of the story is that the historicity as well. So there can't be, you actually can't have competing internally consistent historic, because part of the consistency too is the historic aspects of these things. So you can't just create something in your head and be like, well, I could do the same thing. Is that what you're saying, Jay?
So it has to be unique, right, is what I'm gathering.
Well, that's part of the uniqueness.
And that's what Orthodoxy claims, too. So I made this argument to somebody else, well, why can't I just take everything in Orthodoxy, not the Orthodoxy? Well, because part of the Orthodox paradigm is it's claiming to be unique and that all the other competing paradigms are false.
So it's a combination of...
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I was just going to say, so it's not a purely philosophical argument because that would fail, and that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, that's the point that Father Deacon makes in his essays. Yeah.
So then the only follow-up issue that I would have there is that if you rely on revelation, which I agree that the Orthodox paradigm is consistent, but that's been my revelation. The problem that I see is that you can't really argue people's revelation if they claim that it's revealed by God.
No, go ahead.
Then you kind of get into another problem where it's okay, yeah, it's revealed to me by God, and how do you convince it? I was thinking of the Matt Slick debate, and yeah, it's silly that he brought that up, but at the same time, how do you argue against that? You can't really argue against the idea of well, God revealed himself to me, and that's just been my experience. So you can't really argue that, and then you're back to the philosophical.
Well, but that's not really getting you anywhere. If somebody's going to claim the Matt Slick sort of private individual revelation, and that's the basis of his worldview, that doesn't really get you anywhere for argumentation in a public sphere in a debate.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, but then isn't that still, that private revelation to that person is still partly what gets them into the paradigm? So it just seems like it's...
Yeah, but that's a category error. The fact that something led you to a position or helped you into something, or that's part of the journey, does not equate to it being the ultimate principle or the justification of the position. For example, I might have studied earthworms for many years and eventually come to believe in God on the basis of design arguments or something like that through earthworms. That doesn't make earthworms my ultimate metaphysical or epistemic principle.
Gotcha.
That's a category error.
Be led to an incorrect conclusion through that revelation, right? Is that correct?
Well, I don't know if I'd say revelation, or well, I guess you could say revelation. Like if God uses a car wreck to bring me to believe in Him, I wouldn't make car wrecks like the ultimate proof of God's existence.
Yeah, it's just tricky because it seems like these two things are bouncing off of each other, and I haven't really figured out a way.
So it's a mistake of logical ordering or ordinal ordering or category mistake. It'd be like saying that, well, the number 1 comes first, so it has more number than the number 2. That's a category mistake.
Or are you just saying,
okay,
what do you do when somebody resorts to a completely private, internal, subjective experience?
Right. Well, that wouldn't be any kind of apologetic argument. Tag is an apologetic argument. So if somebody's
means they conceded the argument.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess the problem is with that is that it's totally irrefutable. If someone was to just go the full revelatory route, it's like you can't argue with it, and that's kind of a strength and a weakness. But someone has to sort of start.
But what you're missing is that has absolutely no value in apologetic argumentation.
Yeah, so as soon as somebody goes to subjectivism, when you said not refuted, that is the refutation.
Yeah, it is. It is self-refuting.
Like they've conceded the debate, and that's all that. So they refute. It's self-stultifying.
Okay,
so
I see.
You don't have to. And a lot of people think this. Well, no, you have to prove things by my own made-up arbitrary standard that I can't justify. It's like, I don't have to do that.
I guess I feel like I'm kind of arguing this, but I don't mean to be, but it seems just like it would lead, okay, someone says that's what's revealed to me, and then someone else says, well, this is what's revealed to me, then you have two subjective claims battling against my revelation versus your revelation.
Yeah, that's why we don't argue subjectivism.
But I just don't see, I see the strength of that, but then I don't see how someone can validly claim that this is not a subjective claim, and I think that's where I'm at.
Because Matt Slick or somebody like that reduced his entire argument to subjectivism.
Yeah.
Okay. We have objective and subjective experiences, right? So we're not creating this kind of dialectic simply because, yes, of course I have a subjective experience of even how I interpret the data and stuff like that. Doesn't exclude that there's something objective. So what if somebody does, if they carve off the objective like Matt Slick did or somebody else, then they've basically forfeited the debate and you've won.
Yeah.
So we're not admitting an either or. We don't have we have an objective argument, and part of that is a subjective experience. We're not reducing it to the subjective. So what you're finding is when people reduce it completely to the subjective, make their whole argument, sort of kind of almost like the previous
back in 2022
the here that was with the miracles or something like that.
Right, that's kind of where my mind is going with the last two people that called in. Is they seem,
if you get
and I
two
see it a
people
lot.
that reduce everything to a subjective state, then they can't do anything. But none of the Orthodox apologists would ever do that.
I see. Okay, well, thank you for
good questions, man. Appreciate that.
Appreciate it. Sorry.